Wildfires are destroying huge swaths of territory around Europe. Finland has been battling its biggest forest fire in half a century. Heat waves are also causing havoc further south. The worst blazes are raging in southern Turkey, where 6 people have been killed. Greece has also been hit hard.
The smoke in Greece is becoming a hazard. So much so that hospitals are now admitting patients with breathing difficulties. Greek authorities had warned that wildfires could erupt in temperatures reaching 45 degrees Celsius. Since we don't seem to understand that we have to protect the environment, unfortunately, this is how the weather is going to be. In Greece and elsewhere, scientists are linking the heat wave and the wildfires to climate change. In Italy, firefighters have been working day and night to douse the flames. On the island of Sicily, the fires in the mountains are also threatening seaside resorts. 150 tourists were moved out. In Turkey, hundreds more holidaymakers were ferried to safety after the forest fires got too close to their hotels. Coast Guards asked boat owners to help with the rescue operation. Inland, farmers are helpless as their animals perish. Dozens of villages have been evacuated. President Erdogan has been quick to point the finger at his political opponents. We know that the fire in Marmaris was caused by children, but an investigation into the other fires is still ongoing. We do not rule out the possibility that someone was told to start them. It is our duty to find those who burn our forests and tear their hearts out. Turkish authorities say they have brought most of the fires under control. But the hot weather is expected to continue for the next few days.
Let's go straight to DW correspondent Julia Hahn, who is joining us from the Manavgat district in the Turkish province of Antalya, one of the worst hit areas by the wildfires. Julia, what's the latest on the ground?
I'm in one of the villages near the town of Manavgat where the fire was raging just a few days ago. And you can see the destruction left by the flames. Now, many buildings, many homes like this one there right behind me have completely burned out. I can still smell the smoke in the air. Almost the entire village has been turned into ashes. Now, many people here were brought elsewhere or went elsewhere to stay there overnight. So right now the village is pretty much deserted. They told me they were able to save their own lives, but they lost their livelihoods because many people here in the area are farmers. They lost their fields, their crops, their animals. It's all gone. And now let's look a little further to this direction. This is the local mosque. It's also been damaged by the fire. Now it's being used to organize aid. People are collecting water, bread and clothing, so the most necessary items to help people out. Now, according to the authorities, more than 100 separate fires erupted in recent days here in southern Turkey and in western Turkey at the Aegean coast. The vast majority of them, they say, are now under control, but a few are still raging. So the firefighting operations continue here in Antalya province as well.
A wide-reaching wildfire with devastating effects. President Erdogan has visited the affected region, facing a lot of criticism. What more can you tell us about that?
Well, yes, he was here yesterday to inspect the damages. He again promised quick help. He said the government would cover the rents of people affected and would rebuild their homes as soon as possible. He also rejected criticism that had emerged particularly on social media concerning his government's crisis management. People were saying that the authorities did not react fast enough, that they did not have the proper equipment to get the situation under control. Now, Erdogan said that the number of firefighting planes, for example, had been increased recently from 6 to 13. He said Turkey got help there from Russia, Ukraine, Azerbaijan, and Iran. Now, as we speak, the cause of the fires here in Antalya province remains unclear. The authorities suspect that at least some of the blazes were caused by arson because the fires broke out in separate, different locations at the same time. So an investigation into this is still ongoing.
Yuli, why is it so difficult to get these fires under control?
Well, first, let me mention that wildfires in this region are common, especially in summer. But it is very hot right now, 41 degrees Celsius as we speak. It's very dry. The soil is very dry. And there have been strong winds. They have been fanning the flames. And all of that has made it very, very difficult for firefighting operations, for firefighters to get the situation under control.
That's a DW correspondent, Yulia Han in Antalya, Turkey. Thanks so much.
And joining me now from Oslo is Ketan Joshi, a climate analyst. Welcome to the program, Mr. Joshi. Now, for days, we've seen dozens of wildfires ravaging in Turkey, in Italy, in Greece. And in Turkey, they're saying the investigation to the start of the fire is still going on. But looking at the scale of these fires, the ferocity, would you say this is no coincidence?
Certainly not. This is precisely what has been warned for quite some time around the impacts of burning fossil fuels and consequently the climate change that we see across the world. Many of the themes that were touched on in that report just then strike me as almost precisely the same as the wildfires of 2019/2020 in Australia. And of course, the way that the wildfires have emerged in the US, North America as well. So certainly not a coincidence, and something that we know for sure is being made more intense as the consequence of burning fossil fuels.
And Northern Europe, including Germany, was recently hit by other extreme weather, extreme forces of nature, looking at the flooding we just saw. This is making people question if the climate has become more chaotic. What are your thoughts?
Certainly what we're seeing is a rise in extremes. This is something that doesn't always manifest in the way that you might intuit it does from a warming planet. So, for instance, more water and more moisture is stored in the atmosphere when temperatures rise, which leads to greater rainfall and more intense flooding events. This manifests differently all across the world, and of course it manifests differently according to local factors as well. But unfortunately what we are seeing is that the consequences of adding greenhouse gases into the atmosphere are resulting in a more chaotic, as you say, atmosphere. And it's something, again, that was predicted in general, but unfortunately these extremes are perhaps somewhat worse than was predicted.
The goal set out in the Paris Climate Accord is to cap global warming at 1.5 degrees. How important is it for this goal to be achieved sooner rather than later? And is this really likely?
So when it comes to the emissions reductions that need to be achieved to reach a certain temperature goal, what is really, really important is that the bulk of emissions reductions actually need to occur sooner rather than later. And that is because the total quantity of greenhouse gases that you add to the atmosphere results in worse warming, which basically means the later we leave it, the worse the consequences. Even if we do achieve, say, a net zero by 2050 target across the world, if we do it sooner, then the consequences will be less bad. Those disasters that you mentioned will hypothetically be less severe, which is, of course, something that we want. As to the feasibility of it, I think it is certainly very, very feasible. It's something that can be done. What we see across the world is that countries that really put their mind to it and put effort into it are achieving far more than was anticipated. As to whether it's likely, it depends on how hard we try and how hard companies and governments push towards that goal.
Okay. Ketan Joshi, climate analyst, speaking to us from Oslo. Thank you.
Thank you.